Hello everyone. Today we're being a bit serious. Today we're defending someone. And make it sound like it's a court case. It's not that deep. Yeah, because recently I've been seeing a couple of bits being said about David Tennant, and by today I mean over the last few months, ever since it's really been announced that David is coming back to the show. And I know there are some people that will agree with the points that I'm trying to defend against, there are people that will slightly disagree, and there'll be people that will very disagree. Great grammar. But today I'm giving you my take, because overall I feel like within a lot of the fandom, David Tennant has been really disrespected, and I think I need to defend him. Again, it isn't actually that serious, I'm just, kind of putting intensifiers on for dramatic effect. So anyway, let's get on with the first issue, David's involvement in the 60th. Now, one of the things that seems to be really irritating people is the fact that David is involved in the 60th at all. Why? Now, I have to admit, I don't get this, but let's try and go through this. I think people's argument, and the main reason why people seem to be not liking David Tennant at the moment, is because he's the only one that ever seems to come back in the modern era. I mean, obviously, we've had classic doctors like Peter Davison pop up here and there, and obviously we had a lot of that stuff in the centenary, but in terms of modern doctors returning to the role, David Tennant's the only one who's really done it, unless you count the Matt Smith in Series 8, which I don't, because he definitely just filmed that while he was still on set for Series 7. So people's main argument is that the BBC and Doctor Who is always just so focused on David Tennant, and therefore bringing him back just is the last nail in the coffin. In terms of the 60th, people have also said, why don't we just move straight into Ncuti? And there were some people that were okay with David Tennant himself coming back, but having David play two incarnations, being the 10th and the 14th, is just too far for them. So let's try and answer all these problems. First of all, right now, David is the only modern Doctor who is willing or can come back. Christopher Eccleston has said multiple times he doesn't want to come back on TV, especially in a multi-Doctor story. I think he said these days if they got him back on his own, he'd be fine with that, but in a multi-Doctor special, he just wouldn't do it. Similarly, Peter Capaldi has expressed he doesn't really want to come back, and while I think he could be doing an Andrew Garfield and might have a small role in the 60th, at this point it does seem unlikely. Obviously, Jodie can't return, otherwise if she was... that would just make her the continuing Doctor. That's not how returns work. And Matt Smith is the glaring flaw here, but Matt Smith is an incredibly busy actor. Like, Matt Smith as an actor has gone from strength to strength to strength since Doctor Who, and honestly, yes, I can see why if he was offered the David Tennant role that David Tennant has got in the 60th, he would have probably turned it down due to 3 months being a lot for his schedule right now. And yes, people can argue that David Tennant is the only one to have come back before, so why is he doing it again? But David's one of the only modern Doctors who is willing to come back. Why aren't we as a fandom celebrating an actor who actively loves the show, loves the fan base, and wants to actively return? That genuinely isn't any shade to Christopher Eccleston or Peter Capaldi, but we're deciding to slate David Tennant for coming back, rather than, for example, Peter Capaldi for not wanting to come back. It also doesn't really make sense, for example, for Ncuti to come in and just straight away be the Doctor. I was really wondering how they were going to do this before obviously we knew exactly how it was going to happen. Imagine, straight away, as the Doctor, having to do an anniversary special. First of all, a new Doctor is not what an anniversary is. An anniversary, the whole point of it is to be fan service and to be fun and celebrate the previous years of the show, not necessarily introduce a new Doctor. But not just that, imagine taking up tons and tons of story with celebrating a new Doctor. Also, can we add that Ncuti's going to be in it, so people that wanted Ncuti to be in it from the start are getting the best of both worlds? That's why the solution of David as 14 makes a lot of sense. You both move the story forward and gain a bit of nostalgia. Because yes, David Tennant with a similar performance as he gave to 10, with Donna coming back, with probably lots of other different characters back, as David Tennant himself has said in a convention, it means you get the best of both worlds with the show moves forward, so you don't just get to the end of Power of the Doctor and it just cuts to black with Jodie regenerating, but then you also do get glimpses into the past. You've got to admit, Russel being given an anniversary and having to start a new Doctor, the bloke was put in a very precarious position, and he's dealt with it, I think, at least from the promise of what's to come, very, very well. The other big one here is addressing the David Tennant Doctor Who magazine problem. This one isn't directly addressed like problems with David Tennant, but problems with the Doctor Who team overly using David Tennant in marketing. This has always been kind of a little bit of a problem with people just generally not liking the show's overuse of David Tennant, especially from people who don't see David as, you know, the big favourite Doctor. I think where I slightly agree with people's complaints here is that sometimes Doctor Who marketing and just things they put out in general are very David Tennant focused, because I think the marketing team do kind of see David Tennant as like the most popular Doctor, whereas in reality, a lot of people now prefer Matt Smith and Peter Capaldi and Jodie Whittaker. David Tennant has probably fallen quite a lot in like the popularity of Doctors, so I think people who especially aren't as much fans of David Tennant have gotten quite irritated at his overuse in marketing. The big example recently is on the most recent cover of Doctor Who magazine. It's supposed to be celebrating Sarah Jane, and David Tennant is on the cover. Now I have to admit, this doesn't bother me particularly, because yes, Sarah Jane is a companion. I know she had a TV show within her own right, but celebrating her with a Doctor that's really closely associated with her, I don't see that as a problem. Also, guess what? He is still a very popular Doctor, so putting him on the cover might sell more covers. Surprise, surprise, if you're making a magazine, you want to sell covers. Look, would this magazine cover have worked perfectly well without David Tennant? Yes. Is it that much of a deep issue? No, it really isn't, I have to admit. Also, you've got to remember, he's the current Doctor, so yes, David Tennant is going to get a lot of publicity on Doctor Who magazine. Surprisingly, the current Doctor gets publicity. So what have we gained from this? Look, to me, the Doctor Who magazine debate is neither here nor there. Does it really matter? In either way, no, not really. But I can see why some fans are getting irritated at David Tennant's overuse in the marketing. But in terms of the 60th, I think people do need to be a bit more calm. Look, having David come back twice in the show is always a good thing, and I think an actor who is willing to show love to the show and come back to the show, I don't get why us fans have seen that as a negative thing. Like, there are some fans who actively want this to be David's last appearance in the show, and honestly, I'm not thinking like that, because if the bloke wants to come back, why not allow him to come back? Think of Patrick Troughton, for example. Patrick Troughton, after his run, came back for 3 separate stories. The 3 Doctors, the 5 Doctors, and the 2 Doctors. No one's ever looking back in time and going, wow, Patrick Troughton appeared one too many times, didn't he? I do feel fans' frustrations, because for example, I know, including me probably, there are fans who would probably rather see Peter Capaldi return once or Matt Smith return once than see David Tennant again. I get that. But seeing as that's likely not to happen, at least on the big scale I think most fans want, I think we should be more positive in going, we are getting a returning Doctor, and another stab for him, and that's really cool. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Also, I recently reviewed Series 1 of Doctor Who with Farries, as in the Farries. So if you want to see that podcast, I'd click that there, because honestly, it's not a bad watch, you know.